She had 3 seconds to decide. 3 seconds before Victoria's cruel smile reached the rest of the ballroom. 3 seconds to either shrink into the shadows like she always did, or walk across that floor and prove that kindness was not the same as weakness. Iris did not know that her choice would save her life. She did not know it would doom her heart. And she definitely did not know that the man everyone pitied was the most dangerous creature in the room. The champagne glass trembled in her hand as their laughter surrounded her like wolves circling prey. "So will you be dancing with the cripple?" Victoria's voice dripped with venom and amusement. Iris lifted her chin, her heart hammering against her ribs, and met the eyes of the man in the wheelchair beside her. He smiled at her, soft and unassuming, as if he had heard this poison 1,000 times before. What none of them knew, what none of them could possibly imagine, was that the man they mocked was not broken at all. He was the storm they should have been running from. The Nightshade Gala was the event of the season, the one night a year when the most powerful vampire families and their select human guests gathered under crystal chandeliers to pretend civility existed between their worlds. Iris Delane stood near the silk-draped walls, a glass of champagne she had not sipped warming in her damp palm. She did not belong here. She knew it. They knew it. Her invitation had come through her employer, a vampire antiquities dealer who needed a human assistant to handle the sunlight hours. Charity, really. She smoothed down the front of her simple navy dress, painfully aware of the diamonds and silk swirling around her. Across the ballroom, beneath a balcony drenched in candlelight, sat a man in a wheelchair who also did not seem to belong. Iris had noticed him earlier, tucked into the shadowed corner near the marble fountain. His dark hair fell across his forehead in a careless way that looked accidental but was anything but. His hands rested quietly on the arms of the chair, his clothes well-made but understated. No one approached him. No one even looked his way. He seemed content with that, his gaze moving across the crowd with something like amusement, as if he were watching a play he had already seen. Iris wondered who he was. Why he had come to a place that clearly did not welcome him. There was something about the stillness in him, the way he did not try to attract attention or apologize for taking up space. She envied that. Then Victoria Ashford appeared in front of her, all gleaming teeth and cruelty wrapped in a crimson gown. 2 others flanked her, Sienna and Trevor, vampires from old families who treated humans like amusing pets. "Iris, darling," Victoria purred, her eyes bright with malice. "I have been looking for you." Iris's stomach tightened. Nothing good ever followed that tone. "There is a man over there," Victoria continued, gesturing lazily toward the man in the wheelchair. "He has been sitting alone all night. Poor thing. I thought, since you are so kind-hearted, so charitable, you might go keep him company. Maybe even dance with him." Her smile widened. "If that is even possible." Sienna laughed behind her hand. Trevor smirked into his drink. Iris's face burned. She understood the game. They wanted to humiliate her, to watch her squirm, to see if she would be cruel enough to refuse or foolish enough to accept. She glanced at the man again. He was watching now, his expression unreadable, but there was a flicker of something in his eyes. Recognition, maybe, of what this moment was. She set her glass down on the nearest table. Her hands were shaking but her voice was steady. "I think that sounds lovely." Victoria blinked, surprise flashing across her face before the mockery returned. "Oh, this will be entertaining." Iris walked across the ballroom floor, each step feeling like it stretched for miles. The man watched her approach, and as she got closer, she realized his eyes were the strangest color, dark amber flecked with gold, old eyes that had seen more than any face that young should have seen. He tilted his head slightly, a small smile pulling at the corner of his mouth. "Hello," Iris said quietly, stopping in front of him. "I am Iris." "Damien," he replied, his voice low and smooth, with an accent she could not quite place. British, maybe, but older, from a time when words were chosen with more care. "And I suspect you have just lost a great deal of social standing by walking over here." She smiled despite herself. I did not have much to begin with. His grin widened, and something about it sent a shiver down her spine. Not fear exactly. Something else. Behind her, she heard Victoria's voice rise, pitched loud enough to carry. So will you be dancing with the cripple? Laughter erupted around her, sharp and bright and deliberately cruel. Iris's chest tightened, shame flooding her, not for herself but for him, for the fact that people could be this ugly. She started to turn, to say something, anything, but Damien's hand lifted slightly, just enough to stop her. Do not, he said softly. They are not worth your anger. They should not talk about you like that. His smile turned into something sharper, more dangerous, though his tone remained gentle. Let them talk. I promise you, Iris, their words mean less than the dirt beneath my shoes. There was something in the way he said it. A certainty that made her believe him completely. She took a breath and made a choice. Would you like to dance with me, Damien? He looked at her for a long moment, something shifting in his expression, something that looked almost like surprise. Then he reached out his hand. I would be honored. And as her fingers touched his, the warmth of his skin against hers, she had no idea that the entire world had just shifted beneath her feet. I just spent hours crafting this story for you, pouring every ounce of emotion into Iris and Damien's journey. If you were already hooked, if you were already wondering what happens when they touch, when the truth comes out, do not leave me hanging here. Hit that subscribe button right now and join the fastest growing vampire love stories community. We are building something special here, a place where every story hits deeper than the last. And I want to know, where in the world are you watching this from? Drop your country or city in the comments because I love knowing where my story family is enjoying these tales. Are you Team Iris or Team Damien so far? Tell me below. The moment her hand touched his, Damien rose from the wheelchair. Not slowly. Not with struggle or hesitation. He stood in one fluid, powerful motion, his full height unfolding like a predator who had been crouching in wait. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and moved with a grace that made the air around him seem to still. Iris's breath caught in her throat. Her mind stuttered, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. You, she whispered. You can walk. His hand tightened gently around hers, steadying her, and his smile was wicked, devastatingly charming, the kind of smile that had probably toppled kingdoms. I can do a great many things, darling. He led her onto the dance floor, his movements impossibly smooth, and the ballroom around them began to quiet. Heads turned. Whispers started like wildfire. Victoria's champagne glass slipped from her fingers and shattered on the marble floor, the sound cutting through the music like a gunshot. Damien pulled Iris close, one hand at her waist, the other cradling her trembling fingers, and he leaned down until his lips were near her ear. Breathe, Iris. You are safe. Safer than anyone in this room, I assure you. Who are you? She managed, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. His eyes, those impossible gold-flecked eyes, met hers, and in them she saw centuries. Power. Danger. Something ancient and utterly unafraid. Someone who has been waiting a very long time for someone like you. The music swelled around them, a haunting waltz, and he began to move, guiding her effortlessly across the floor. She had never been a good dancer, but in his arms, she did not need to be. He led and she followed, and it felt like flying. Like drowning. Like waking up. Around them, the crowd parted, staring openly now, confusion and shock written across every face. Victoria stood frozen at the edge of the dance floor, her expression somewhere between fury and fear. They are all watching, Iris whispered. Let them, Damien murmured, his voice like dark honey. Let them see exactly what they mocked. Let them wonder. Let them fear. Why were you pretending? His smile faded slightly, something more genuine, more vulnerable slipping through. Because I am tired of being seen as a monster before I am seen as a man. But you, Iris Delane, you did not see a monster or a man in a chair. You saw someone alone and decided that mattered more than what they thought of you. He spun her gently, her dress flaring around her legs. That is rarer than you know. Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes. She did not understand what was happening. Why he had chosen her. Why this felt like the ground beneath her had turned to quicksand and solid stone all at once. Thank you, he said quietly, and the words landed in her chest like a vow. For walking across that room. The song ended, and the silence that followed was deafening. Iris stood in the center of the ballroom, Damien's hand still at her waist, and felt the weight of 200 pairs of eyes pressing down on her. She stepped back, her breath shaky, her thoughts a tangled mess. I need some air, she said, her voice barely holding together. Damien released her immediately, though something flickered in his expression. Disappointment, maybe. Or understanding. Of course. She turned and walked quickly toward the balcony doors, her heels clicking too loudly on the marble. Behind her, the whispers exploded into full conversation, voices overlapping in confusion and speculation. She pushed through the glass doors and out into the cool night, gripping the stone railing and gulping down the crisp air. What had just happened? Who was he? And why did it feel like her entire body was still humming from his touch? Inside, Damien lowered himself back into the wheelchair with deliberate slowness, his expression shifting into something cooler, more dangerous. He had worn the mask of civility for centuries. He could wear it a few minutes more. Victoria approached, flanked by her companions, her face pale but her voice sharp. What kind of game are you playing? She demanded. Damien tilted his head, his smile cold and razor-edged. Game? My dear, I do not play games. I orchestrate consequences. He let the words settle, watching her confidence waver. You thought it amusing to mock a man you believed could not defend himself. Tell me, Victoria Ashford of the Ashford line, how amusing do you find it now? Trevor stepped forward, puffing his chest in a pathetic display of dominance. You do not know who you are talking to. Damien laughed, a low, rich sound that made several nearby vampires take a step back. Oh, I know exactly who I am talking to. The question is whether you have the faintest idea who I am. He leaned forward slightly, his eyes glittering with something feral. But you will. Soon enough. Victoria opened her mouth, but no sound came out. There was something in his presence now, something that set off every ancient instinct in her vampire blood. Prey recognizing predator. She turned and walked away, dragging Trevor and Sienna with her. Damien's gaze shifted to the balcony, where Iris stood silhouetted against the moonlight. She was afraid. Not of him, he thought. Of what she felt. Of the unknown. He understood that. He had spent lifetimes building walls to keep the unknown out. But walls, he had learned, could also be prisons. Iris did not know how long she stood on the balcony before she heard the quiet sound of wheels against stone. She turned to find Damien rolling himself through the doorway, back in the chair, his expression softer now, less predatory. May I join you? He asked. Or would you prefer solitude? She should have said yes. She should have told him to leave, to let her think, to stop turning her entire world upside down. Instead, she heard herself say, "You can stay." He moved beside her, leaving space between them, and for a moment, they simply stood in silence, the sounds of the gala muffled behind the glass. You are afraid, he said finally. It was not a question. I do not understand what is happening, Iris admitted. I do not understand who you are or why you stood up or why any of this feels. She trailed off, unable to name it. Important, he offered gently. Dangerous. He nodded slowly. It is both. He turned to look at her, and the moonlight caught the sharp lines of his face, making him look like something carved from marble and shadow. I told you my name is Damien. That is true. What I did not tell you is that I am very, very old, Iris. Older than this city. Older than the families inside that ballroom who think their bloodlines make them untouchable. His voice dropped, intimate and devastating. I came here tonight because I was bored. Because I wanted to watch the pageantry of people pretending power matters more than character. I wore this disguise because I have learned that people reveal their true selves when they believe you are powerless to stop them. And what did you learn tonight? She whispered. He smiled, and it was heartbreaking in its sincerity. That kindness still exists. That someone in a room full of monsters chose to see a person instead of a prop for cruelty. I learned that I was wrong to be so cynical. He paused. You reminded me of something I had forgotten. What? That goodness is not weakness. It is the rarest form of strength. Her throat tightened. She wanted to look away but could not. Why do I feel like I have known you longer than one dance? Because some souls recognize each other, Damien said quietly. Across lifetimes. Across worlds. I do not believe in fate, Iris, but I believe in choice. And you chose to walk across that room. Now I am choosing to tell you the truth. What truth? He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and when she did not, he took her hand in his. His skin was warm, impossibly warm for what she suspected he was. That I would very much like to see you again. That I would like to know you beyond this one night. And that if you allow it, I will make certain that no one ever makes you feel small again. Tears spilled down her cheeks before she could stop them. No one had ever spoken to her like this. Like she mattered. Like she was worth protecting. I do not even know your full name, she said, laughing through the tears. His expression shifted, something dangerous and grand moving behind his eyes. Damien Corvus. Though some know me by other titles. The Undying. The First Blood. The Vampire King of the Northern Territories. He said it simply, as if he were telling her he worked in accounting. Iris's breath stopped. Every human in the supernatural world knew that name. Knew the stories. The legend. The terror. That is not possible. And yet, he said, squeezing her hand gently. Here I am. She should have run. Every logical part of her brain screamed at her to run. But her heart, foolish and reckless, whispered something else entirely. Stay. Do you think Iris should trust him, or is she walking straight into danger? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Iris did not run. Instead, she sank down onto the stone bench near the balcony edge, her legs suddenly unsteady. Damien remained where he was, giving her space, watching her with an intensity that should have frightened her but somehow did not. The Vampire King, she repeated, her voice hollow. The one who destroyed the Blackwell clan in a single night. The one who... She looked up at him, her eyes wide. They say you have no mercy. That you have ended bloodlines for sport. Damien's jaw tightened, and for the first time, she saw something like pain cross his features. They say many things. Some are true. Some are exaggerated. None provide context. He moved closer, still in the chair, and his voice dropped to something raw. I have lived for over 1,000 years, Iris. I have done terrible things. I have killed, destroyed, burned entire houses to ash. But I have never, not once, done so without reason. What reason justifies genocide? Protection. The word came out like gravel. The Blackwell clan was not innocent. They were trafficking human children, selling them to the worst of our kind for sport and feeding. I gave them warning. I gave them opportunity to stop. They laughed in my face and killed 3 more children the next night, leaving their bodies on my territory as a message. His hands gripped the arms of the wheelchair, knuckles white. So I sent a message in return. I erased them. Every single one. And I would do it again. Iris's stomach twisted. The story she had heard had painted him as a monster, a tyrant who killed for power. But this was different. Why does everyone think you are a monster? Because I am, he said simply. But I am a monster who chooses his targets carefully. I do not forgive, Iris. I do not forget. If you wrong me or mine, I will end you. If not in this generation, then the next. I have all the time in the world. He leaned forward, his gaze burning into hers. But I do not harm the innocent. I do not prey on the weak. I punish the wicked, and I protect those who cannot protect themselves. She believed him. God help her, she believed every word. Why are you telling me this? Because if you were going to be afraid of me, I want it to be based on truth, not rumors. His voice softened. And because I suspect you understand something about being misunderstood. Iris looked away, her throat tight. He was right. She had spent her whole life being underestimated, dismissed, made invisible. My parents died when I was 16, she said quietly. Car accident. I had no other family, so I went into the foster system. Aged out at 18 with nothing. I have spent the last 6 years working 3 jobs just to survive, just to prove I am worth something. Her voice cracked. And people like Victoria, they look at me and see nothing. A human. A servant. Something to mock. Damien's expression darkened, rage simmering just beneath the surface. What is her full name? What? Victoria. Her full name. Her family line. Iris hesitated. Victoria Ashford. Daughter of Lord Ashford of the Eastern Council. Why? A slow, dangerous smile spread across Damien's face, the kind of smile that promised ruin. Because I want to remember it. They talked for hours. The gala continued inside, but neither of them moved to return. Damien told her stories from centuries past, of empires rising and falling, of wars fought and loves lost. He spoke of his sister, a vampire named Rosalind who had been killed by a rival clan 300 years ago, and how he still visited her grave every year. Family is everything to me, he said, his voice thick with old grief. I have spent centuries building power not for myself, but to ensure that those I love are untouchable. And still, I failed her. Iris reached out without thinking and placed her hand over his. You cannot protect everyone from everything. That does not make you a failure. It makes you someone who loved deeply enough to try. He stared at their joined hands, something vulnerable and broken flickering across his face. You are far too kind for this world. Or maybe the world just needs more kindness. He laughed, a real laugh, warm and surprised. You sound like Rosalind. She used to say things like that. Drove me mad. His smile turned bittersweet. She would have liked you. Tell me about her. And he did. He told her about a girl with wild red hair who refused to let him brood, who dragged him to parties and forced him to remember what joy felt like. Who believed that even monsters deserved second chances. Iris found herself laughing at his stories, the tension slowly draining from her shoulders. He was easy to talk to when he let the walls down. Funny, self-deprecating in a way that felt genuine. He did impressions of pompous vampire lords that had her doubled over with laughter. You are not what I expected, she admitted. What did you expect? Brooding in a cape? Monologuing about darkness? She grinned. Maybe a little. I did that for about a century. Got boring. He tilted his head, studying her. You have a beautiful laugh. It sounds like something I want to hear every day for the rest of my very, very long life. Her breath caught. The weight of that statement, the implications, crashed over her. Damien. Too much? He asked gently. I do not know, she whispered. This is all happening so fast. I met you 3 hours ago. Time is relative when you have lived as long as I have. I have known people for decades and never truly seen them. And I have known you for 3 hours and feel like I have been looking for you for centuries. He brought her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles that sent electricity racing up her arm. But I will go as slowly as you need. I am patient, Iris. I have all the time in the world. And now that I have found you, I am not going anywhere. The glass doors burst open with a force that shattered the left pane. Victoria stood framed in the doorway, her face twisted with rage, flanked by 6 other vampires, all from prominent families. Lord Ashford himself stood among them, his expression cold and imperial. Enough of this charade, Victoria spat. Father, this is the human I told you about. She has been out here for hours with this fraud. Lord Ashford's gaze swept over Damien with dismissive contempt. You will leave immediately. I do not know what game you are playing, pretending to be crippled, but you have disrupted my daughter's event and disrespected this gathering. Damien did not move. Did not even blink. He simply smiled, and it was the most terrifying thing Iris had ever seen. Disrespected? His voice was soft, almost conversational. How fascinating. Tell me, Lord Ashford, do you know who I am? I neither know nor care. Then allow me to educate you. Damien rose from the wheelchair in one fluid motion, his full presence expanding like a storm filling the sky. The temperature dropped 10 degrees. The air itself seemed to bend around him. His eyes bled from amber to solid black, power radiating off him in waves that made every vampire on the balcony take an involuntary step back. I am Damien Corvus. First of my line. King of the Northern Territories. The Undying. The First Blood. His voice echoed with command that came from 1,000 years of absolute authority. And you just made a very, very grave mistake. Lord Ashford's face went white. Victoria made a small choking sound. But Damien was not done. He turned to Victoria, his smile vicious. You mocked a man you believed defenseless. You used cruelty as entertainment. You tried to humiliate someone whose only crime was showing kindness. He took a step forward, and she stumbled back. I have toppled empires for less. It was a joke, Victoria stammered. I did not mean. You meant every word. His voice cracked like a whip. And now you will learn what happens when you show your true nature to someone who never forgets. Please, Lord Ashford interjected, his voice shaking. Your Majesty, we did not know. If we had any idea. If you had known, you would have been respectful. But your daughter revealed what you truly are when you believe no one powerful is watching. Cowards. Bullies. Parasites feeding on perceived weakness. Iris stood frozen, watching this unfold, her heart hammering. This was the king. The legend. The terror. And he was magnificent and horrifying in equal measure. Then Victoria's eyes landed on Iris, and desperation made her vicious. This is about her? A human? You would threaten us over a pathetic, worthless. The rest of her sentence died in her throat as Damien moved faster than sight, his hand around Victoria's neck, lifting her off the ground. His face was inches from hers, and when he spoke, his voice promised death. Finish that sentence. I dare you. Damien, stop. Iris's voice cut through the tension. He froze. Did not lower Victoria, but turned his head slightly to look at Iris. Put her down, Iris said, her voice shaking. Please. She insulted you. I know. But if you kill her, you prove them right. That you are just a monster. That violence is the only language you speak. Tears streamed down her face. Please. Do not do this. Something shifted in his expression. Pain. Conflict. Then, slowly, he lowered Victoria to the ground. She collapsed, gasping. But when he turned back to Iris, his eyes were still black, still furious. You defend them? After what they did to you? I defend you, she shot back. I defend the man who told me he protects the innocent. Prove it. Show me that you are more than the stories. His jaw clenched. For a moment, she thought he might argue. Then he turned to Lord Ashford. You and your family are banished from the Northern Territories. Effective immediately. If I ever see your daughter again, if I ever hear her name connected to cruelty or harm, I will not be so merciful. Do you understand? Lord Ashford nodded frantically. Yes. Yes, Your Majesty. Get out of my sight. They fled. All of them, scrambling over each other to escape. The silence that followed was deafening. Damien stood in the center of the balcony, his chest heaving, power still crackling around him like lightning. Slowly, his eyes faded back to Amber. You stopped me, he said quietly. You were going to kill her. She deserved it. Maybe. Iris wrapped her arms around herself. But I do not want to be the reason you become the monster they think you are. He flinched like she had struck him. You think I am a monster? I think you are someone who has been hurt so many times that violence feels like the only answer. Her voice broke. And I understand that. But I cannot. I cannot be with someone who solves everything with death. With? He looked at her, hope and devastation warring in his expression. You said with. As if there is a possibility of us. Iris's tears fell faster. I do not know. I do not know anything anymore. I just know that tonight has been the most incredible and terrifying night of my life, and I need time to think. Damien stepped back, giving her space, his expression carefully neutral. Of course. Take all the time you need. She turned and walked toward the door, each step feeling like it might shatter her. Iris, he called softly. She stopped but did not turn around. I would have burned the world for you tonight. I still would. That will not change, no matter how much time you take. She closed her eyes, a sob catching in her throat, and walked away. Has Damien just lost the one person who saw him as more than a monster? What would you have done in Iris's place? Tell me in the comments. 3 days passed like 3 years. Iris returned to her small apartment, to her normal life, and found that nothing felt normal anymore. She went to work at the antique shop, cataloging dusty artifacts and avoiding her employer's questions about the gala. She lay awake at night, replaying every moment, every word, every touch. She could still feel his hand at her waist. Still hear his voice saying her name like a prayer. But she also remembered the blackness in his eyes. The rage. The ease with which he had lifted Victoria off the ground, fully prepared to end her life. On the 4th morning, a package arrived at her door. Inside was a first edition book, centuries old, the cover worn soft with age. A note was tucked inside, written in elegant script. This belonged to Rosalind. She loved poetry. I thought you might appreciate it. I am not asking for forgiveness. I am not asking for anything. I simply wanted you to have something beautiful. Yours, if you will have me. D. Iris clutched the book to her chest and wept. That afternoon, another gift arrived. A single white rose in a crystal vase with a note. Day 2 without your laugh. I am not handling it well. The next day, a box of expensive chocolates. Rosalind used to say chocolate fixed most problems. I am willing to try anything. Day 4, a donation receipt. He had given $500,000 to the foster care organization in her parents' names. The note read, "You said you wanted to prove you were worth something. You already have. But perhaps this can help others who feel the same way you once did." Iris sat on her apartment floor, surrounded by his gifts, and realized something. He was not trying to buy her forgiveness. He was showing her, in every way he knew how, that he heard her. That he was trying. She picked up her phone with shaking hands and typed a message to the number he had included in the first note. "Can we talk?" The response came in seconds. "Anytime. Anywhere. I will be there." They met in a quiet park at sunset, far from the supernatural society, far from prying eyes. Damien was sitting on a bench, no wheelchair this time, dressed simply in dark jeans and a sweater. He looked almost human. Almost ordinary. Except for the way he stood when he saw her, like she was the sun rising after an endless night. "Thank you for coming," he said quietly. Iris sat down beside him, leaving space between them, and for a moment, neither spoke. "I am sorry," she said finally. "For running. For judging you. You had every right. I nearly killed someone in front of you. She was cruel. Cruelty does not warrant execution. You were right about that." He turned to face her fully. "I have spent so long being the king, the enforcer, the monster, that I forgot how to be anything else. You reminded me. And instead of listening, I proved every fear you had. You also stopped," Iris pointed out. "When I asked, you stopped. That matters. Does it matter enough?" The vulnerability in his voice cracked something open in her chest. She took a breath. "I have been thinking a lot these past few days. About who you are. About what I want. And I realized something. I spent my whole life being told I was not enough. Not strong enough, not special enough, not worth protecting. And then you walked into my life, or I walked into yours, and suddenly I felt like I mattered. Like someone saw me." She met his eyes. "But I also realized that I cannot be the reason you change. You have to want it for yourself." "I do," he said immediately. "I want to be better. Not because you asked, but because you made me remember what it feels like to care about someone more than revenge. More than pride." He reached out slowly, his hand hovering near hers. "I cannot promise I will not be violent. I cannot promise I will not protect you with everything I have, including destruction. But I can promise that I will try to be the man you saw on that balcony before the rage. The one who made you laugh. Who told you stories. Who wants nothing more than to hear you say my name again." Iris felt the tears coming and did not fight them. "I am terrified. Of me? Of how much I feel for you after just one night. Of what it means. Of what happens if this does not work." Damien's hand finally closed around hers, warm and steady. "Then we figure it out together. One day at a time. I have lived 1,000 years, Iris, and I have never felt about anyone the way I feel about you. That terrifies me too. But I would rather be terrified with you than safe without you." She looked at their joined hands, at the way his thumb was tracing gentle circles on her skin, and made her choice. "I want to try," she whispered. "I want this. You. All of it. Even the terrifying parts." The smile that broke across his face was sunrise and salvation. "Yeah. Yeah." He cupped her face in his hands, his touch achingly gentle, and rested his forehead against hers. "I will spend every day proving you made the right choice." "You already started," she said, thinking of the gifts, the donation, the patience. "That was nothing. That was me barely holding myself together." He pulled back just enough to meet her eyes. "Wait until you see what I am like when I am actually trying to woo someone." She laughed, the sound bright and free, and watched his expression transform with wonder. "There it is," he murmured. That laugh. I am keeping that forever. Forever is a long time. His expression turned serious, intense. Not nearly long enough. 6 months later, Iris stood in the grand hall of Damien's estate, a sprawling manor in the Northern Territories that looked like something out of a Gothic fairy tale. She had moved in 3 months ago, after he had asked her 12 times if she was sure, if she wanted this, if she was ready. She had been sure since that night in the park. Tonight, the hall was filled with vampires from every major family, gathered for the annual council summit. But this year was different. This year, Damien had made an announcement that sent shockwaves through their entire world. He was taking a partner. A human partner. And he expected her to be treated with the same respect as himself. Iris wore a gown of midnight blue, simple and elegant, and stood at Damien's side as he addressed the assembly. She was terrified. But his hand in hers, steady and warm, kept her grounded. "Some of you know why you are here," Damien said, his voice carrying easily through the hall. "Others are about to find out. 6 months ago, I attended a gala in disguise. I wanted to see how our society treated those it deemed weak. What I found was cruelty, mockery, and casual disregard for basic decency." His gaze swept the room, landing briefly on the Ashford family, who had been allowed to attend but stood far in the back. "I also found something else. Someone who chose kindness over acceptance. Who saw a person instead of a pawn." He turned to Iris, and the look in his eyes made her heart stutter. Iris Delane reminded me what it means to be more than power and fear. She challenged me. She stopped me from becoming the monster I was so close to embracing. And she chose to see the best in me even when I showed her the worst. Tears pricked Iris's eyes. "So I am making this very clear," Damien continued, his voice dropping into command. "Iris is under my protection. Absolutely. Eternally. Any insult to her is an insult to me. Any threat to her will be answered with the full weight of my wrath. And if anyone in this room has a problem with that, you may leave now." Silence. No one moved. Then, from the front row, an older vampire woman stood. Lady Marguerite, one of the most respected members of the council. She inclined her head to Iris. "Welcome, Lady Iris. It is an honor." One by one, others stood. Bowing. Acknowledging her. Accepting her. Iris's throat tightened. She had spent her whole life invisible, and now she stood in front of the most powerful supernatural beings in the world, seen and respected. Because Damien had chosen her. And he never did anything halfway. After the formal portion ended, the gathering shifted to a reception. Iris found herself surrounded by curious vampires, some genuinely kind, others clearly calculating how to use this new connection. Damien never left her side, his presence a constant shield. At one point, Victoria approached, her expression nervous. "Lady Iris, I wanted to apologize. For that night. I was cruel and small, and I have regretted it every day since." Iris studied her for a long moment. The apology seemed genuine, born from fear maybe, but also from something like actual remorse. "Thank you. I accept your apology." Victoria's relief was visible. "Truly? Truly. But if you ever treat anyone that way again, wheelchair or not, powerful or not, you will answer to me." Iris smiled, but there was steel beneath it. "And I have learned a lot in 6 months about how to handle bullies." Victoria paled and nodded quickly before retreating. Damien leaned down, his lips near Iris's ear. "That was magnificent. Remind me never to get on your bad side." She grinned up at him. "Too late. You started on my bad side. And somehow you still let me stay." He pressed a kiss to her temple. "Luckiest immortal alive." Later, when the guests had gone and the manor was quiet, they stood together on the balcony overlooking the estate grounds. The moon hung full and bright above them, casting silver light across the gardens. "Do you ever regret it?" Damien asked quietly. "Choosing this life? Choosing me?" Iris turned to face him fully, reaching up to cup his face in her hands. "Not for a single second. You gave me something I never thought I would have." "What?" "A place where I belong. Where I am seen. Where I am loved exactly as I am." She smiled. "You gave me forever. How could I regret that?" His arms came around her, pulling her close, and he buried his face in her hair. "I love you. So much it terrifies me. So much I would raise this entire world if it meant keeping you safe." "I know. But maybe try talking things out first?" She was teasing, but also a little serious. He laughed, the sound rumbling through his chest. "For you, I will try diplomacy. But I make no promises. That is all I ask." He pulled back just enough to look at her, his expression soft and open in a way he only ever was with her. "Marry me." Iris blinked. "What?" "Marry me. Be my wife, my partner, my everything. Let me spend the rest of your life and all of mine proving that walking across that ballroom was the best decision you ever made." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "That is the least smooth proposal I have ever heard. Is that a yes? You did not even have a ring. I have 17 rings inside. I have been carrying them around for 2 months waiting for the right moment." He grinned, boyish and hopeful. "So? Will you marry the terrifying vampire king and make me the happiest monster in existence?" Iris laughed through her tears and kissed him, pouring every ounce of love and joy and certainty into it. When she pulled back, she whispered against his lips, "Yes. 1,000 times yes." Damien's answering smile could have lit the entire night sky. And somewhere in the distance, Iris could have sworn she heard the wind chime like laughter, like someone was celebrating with them. Someone with wild red hair who believed even monsters deserved second chances. She had been right. "So you made it all the way to the end. You watched Iris and Damien go from strangers to soulmates, from mockery to majesty. If you felt every emotion, if you rooted for them, if you were sitting there wishing you had someone who would burn the world for you, then do not just scroll past. I poured my heart into this story while you were sleeping, crafting every twist, every moment. The least you can do is hit subscribe. Join our family. We are the fastest growing vampire love stories community, and we are just getting started. Click that button now, turn on notifications, and become part of something bigger. And hey, if you love this story, wait until you see what is coming next. It is even more emotionally twisted, even more intense, even more impossible to stop watching. The next story is already waiting for you. Click the video on your screen right now and fall into another world with me. Do not make me beg. You know you want to.